The Orion Mental Capacity Research Station hung silently in the void, a gleaming constellation of interconnected modules against the backdrop of infinite stars. 50 million kilometers from Earth. It represented humanity's most ambitious attempt to unlock the secrets of the human brain in an environment free from terrestrial interference. The year was 247, and mankind's quest to expand both its physical and mental frontiers had led to this remote outpost of scientific inquiry. Dr. Lei Ming stood before the curved observation window of Laboratory 7, watching the subtle dance of cosmic radiation across the station's external sensors. His reflection stared back at him, a lean figure with intense eyes that betrayed both exhaustion and determination. As the station's leading neurologist specializing in brainwave processing, Min had pioneered techniques that allowed for unprecedented neural mapping and enhancement. "Anything interesting in the void today?" Baoan's voice broke through Min's contemplation. The algorithm programming engineer approached, carrying 2 steaming cups of synthetic coffee. Min accepted the cup with a grateful nod. "Just thinking about our latest brain stimulation protocol. The results are promising, but something feels like we're still missing a fundamental pattern." Anne leaned against the console, her short, cropped hair framing a face marked by the same dedicated intensity as Min's. "Sometimes I think we're trying too hard to find patterns when we should be looking for disruptions instead." Little did they know how prophetic those words would prove to be. The alert came at 0347 station time. Min was deep in REM sleep when the emergency tone jolted him awake. The station's AI assistant, Aria, spoke with calculated calm. "Dr. Min, anomalous signal detected by Array 9. Classification, unknown. Intensity, escalating. Personnel experiencing cognitive disturbances in proximity to receiving equipment." By the time Min reached the main laboratory, chaos had already taken hold. 3 research assistants sat slumped against walls, their eyes unfocused and movements erratic. Equipment screens flickered with chaotic patterns that seemed to defy digital containment, spilling across monitors and cascades of data that shouldn't have been possible. "What happened?" Min demanded, rushing to the central control station where An was frantically typing commands. "Signal appeared approximately 17 minutes ago," she said without looking up. "Origin appears to be Zeta 9 star system. It penetrated our standard filters, like they weren't even there." Her fingers paused momentarily. "Min, I've never seen anything like this. The signal pattern. It's changing in response to our attempts to analyze it." Min quickly scanned the room. "Where's Dr. Rui?" "Observation deck B." She was first to respond, but after 5 minutes of direct exposure to the raw signal, she started experiencing severe cognitive disruption. The monitoring screens told the story that words couldn't adequately convey. Brain scans of affected personnel showed unprecedented neural activity, chaotic, fractured patterns that resembled a shattered mirror rather than the organized rhythm of normal brain function. "It's like their focus is being deliberately fractured," Min murmured, studying the scans. "As if the signal knows exactly which frequencies would disrupt human cognition." "Are you suggesting it's intentional?" Anne asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Min didn't answer immediately. Instead, he activated the station's emergency protocols, sealing off the receiving array and initiating the station's defensive electromagnetic shielding. "We need to isolate anyone who's been exposed and get UAV Helix to retrieve Dr. Rui from Observation Deck B." Over the next 72 hours, the situation aboard Orion Station deteriorated. The signal, despite their best containment efforts, seemed to find ways to permeate the station's systems. More crew members reported hallucinations, severe concentration problems, and disorientation. Most disturbing were the reports of time perception distortions, minutes stretching into what felt like hours, or hours compressed into fleeting moments. In the quarantined research lab, Min and a small team of still-functioning scientists worked relentlessly to understand what they were facing. The signal defied conventional analysis. seeming to shift its properties whenever they came close to identifying a pattern. "It's like trying to hold mercury," Anne said, rubbing her temples after 18 straight hours of work. "Every algorithm I write to capture its structure becomes obsolete within minutes." Dr. Sophia Rui, the station's quantum neurologist, had recovered enough to join their efforts, though she still experienced intermittent perceptual distortions. Her normally confident demeanor had been replaced by a cautious intensity. "What if we're approaching this wrong?" she suggested, studying the three-dimensional representation of the signal hovering above the holographic projector. "We're trying to contain and neutralize, but what if that's fundamentally impossible?" Min looked up from his console. "What are you suggesting?" "This signal, it's not just noise. There's a rhythmic structure buried within the chaos. It's designed to fracture attention." "Yes, but in very specific ways." Rui manipulated the hologram, highlighting certain frequency patterns. "See these repeating elements? They target the brain's default mode network, the parts active when we're unfocused. So it's deliberately creating distraction," An said. "More than that," Rui continued. "I think it's creating a specific kind of cognitive breakdown. The pattern doesn't just disrupt, it reshapes neural pathways by first breaking them down." Min's mind raced with implications. Like clearing a path before building a new road. That night, alone in his quarters, Min couldn't sleep. The data patterns from the signal played across his mental landscape whenever he closed his eyes. There was something tantalizingly familiar about them, something that reminded him of techniques used in neural rehabilitation therapy, but amplified and operating on principles beyond current human understanding. An idea began to form, dangerous, perhaps even foolish, but potentially transformative. The next morning, Min called together the core research team. His proposal was met with immediate resistance. "You want to use the alien signal as a neural training tool?" Dr. Rui's voice carried her disbelief. "The same signal that has half our crew experiencing psychotic episodes?" "Not directly," Min clarified. "I want to develop what I'm calling a focus filter, a neural interface that would allow us to use controlled elements of the signal pattern as a kind of cognitive exercise." An, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "You're suggesting we treat it like resistance training for the brain, expose ourselves to controlled doses to build mental resilience." "Exactly," Min nodded. "Think about it. What if this signal isn't a weapon but a tool, one that we simply lack the neural architecture to properly process?" Dr. Rui shook her head. "This is reckless. We have no idea what the long-term effects might be. For all we know, this could be the first stage of some kind of alien cognitive restructuring, a prelude to more direct intervention." "Which is precisely why we need to understand it," Min countered. "If there are intelligences out there with this capability, remaining ignorant isn't a viable defense strategy." The debate raged for hours, but eventually, Min's persistence won out with strict conditions. Only volunteers would participate. Beginning with Min himself, the exposure would be minimal, highly controlled, and continuously monitored. At the first sign of lasting cognitive damage, the experiment would be terminated. The first trials were disastrous, even with significant filtering. Brief exposure to the signal patterns caused Min to experience temporary visual distortions and intense headaches that lasted for hours. But within the suffering, he glimpsed something unexpected, moments of extraordinary mental clarity between the waves of discomfort. "It's working," he insisted to a skeptical Dr. Rui, who monitored his neural readings with growing concern. "Not comfortably, but there are microseconds where my cognitive processing jumps by factors we've never recorded before. And minutes where your visual cortex shows patterns consistent with structural damage," she countered. "This is too dangerous." But Min persisted, refining the filter with Anne's help. They named their approach focus training, an optimistic label for what many on the station considered a form of self-inflicted neural torture. By the third week, they had made a breakthrough. and had developed an algorithm that identified the most disruptive elements of the signal and created counterwave patterns that could partially neutralize them. Min designed a neural interface that would deliver precisely calibrated exposures, gradually increasing intensity as tolerance developed. The first real success came unexpectedly. Jesse Kowalski, a junior researcher who had volunteered for the program, emerged from a 15-minute session with astonishing results. Not only had she experienced no adverse effects, but subsequent testing showed a 23% improvement in her ability to filter irrelevant stimuli and maintain focus on complex tasks. It was like... She struggled to find the right words. Like my brain suddenly understood how to ignore distractions it never even realized were there before. Background processes I never knew were consuming mental energy just shut down. Others followed, with varying degrees of success. Some experienced the same improvements as Kowalski, while others developed intense migraines or temporary sensory processing issues. But with each session, and refined the algorithms, and Min adjusted the neural interface, they discovered that the signal wasn't uniform. It contained thousands of distinct patterns, each affecting different neural pathways. What they had initially perceived as random chaos was revealed to be an incredibly sophisticated neural language, operating on principles that human neuroscience was only beginning to comprehend. It's like they're broadcasting a mental encyclopedia, Min explained during a station-wide briefing. Not content, but processes, ways of organizing and utilizing neural resources that we haven't evolved naturally. Dr. Rui, who had remained skeptical but engaged, proposed a theory. What if this is actually educational? Not a weapon or an attack, but a transmission designed to help developing intelligences enhance their cognitive capabilities. The idea resonated with Min, like leaving advanced textbooks where developing civilizations might find them. As the weeks passed, those who successfully adapted to the focus training began to demonstrate remarkable cognitive enhancements. Complex calculations that once required computer assistance became intuitive. Pattern recognition abilities expanded exponentially. Most striking was the improvement in multitasking without attention degradation. Participants could simultaneously engage with multiple complex problems without the quality of their thinking suffering. Earth authorities, initially alarmed by the situation, had become cautiously intrigued by the potential applications. Under strict quarantine protocols, limited data about the focus training was transmitted back to Earth, where teams of scientists began developing their own safety protocols for eventual wider testing. Then came the day everything changed. Min was in the middle of a training session, deep in a state of enhanced cognition, when the signal's frequency suddenly transformed. The carefully calibrated filters failed instantly. Throughout the station, everyone connected to the focus training program collapsed simultaneously. Anne, who had been monitoring from a shielded control room, watched in horror as neural readings spiked beyond anything they had recorded before. Emergency medical systems activated automatically as unconscious bodies went into seizure-like states. "Abort everything!" she shouted, fingers flying across emergency controls. "Full signal blackout! Medical teams to all training rooms now!" But something unexpected was happening. As Min lay on the floor of the training chamber, his conscious mind overwhelmed by the unfiltered signal, deeper structures in his brain began to activate. Parts of the neural architecture that had been subtly prepared over weeks of training suddenly connected in new configurations. While his conscious experience was one of overwhelming chaos, his brain was undergoing a profound reorganization. Across the station, similar transformations were occurring in all 17 participants. Their brains, pushed beyond normal operational parameters, were adapting in real time, not breaking down, but breaking through. And, desperate to restore stability, did something unprecedented. Instead of simply shutting down the signal feed, she activated the experimental real-time adaptation algorithm they had been developing, a system designed to dynamically adjust the filter based on neural feedback. It wasn't ready for deployment, but she had no other options. The effect was immediate and astonishing. The chaotic neural patterns didn't diminish. Instead, they reorganized into complex but harmonious structures. The 17 participants, Min included, stopped convulsing and entered a state unlike anything recorded in human neuroscience. When Min opened his eyes 4 hours later, the world had changed. Or rather, his perception of it had transformed fundamentally. He could see patterns within patterns, connections between seemingly unrelated phenomena. The flow of information through the station's systems, the subtle electromagnetic fields generated by equipment, the minute changes in air composition, all became not just perceptible but comprehensible. "And," he said softly, finding her anxiously monitoring his vital signs. "I understand now." The words were simple, but the way he spoke them, with a clarity and certainty that seemed to resonate beyond their literal meaning, made An pause. "Understand what?" she asked cautiously. "Everything." Min sat up slowly, his movements precise and deliberate. "The signal, it's not just training, it's communication, a cognitive language designed to be understood only after the mind has been restructured to perceive it." Over the next days, all 17 participants demonstrated similar transformations. They could absorb and process information at rates previously thought impossible. Complex scientific problems that had stymied human researchers for decades suddenly became solvable. Most remarkably, they could share their enhanced cognitive states with others through a form of technologically mediated neural synchronization. Dr. Rui, who had not been among the 17, worked tirelessly to document and understand what had happened. "It's not just enhanced intelligence," she explained during a video conference with Earth authorities. "It's a fundamentally different way of organizing and utilizing neural resources. They haven't become smarter in the conventional sense. They've developed an entirely new cognitive architecture." The implications were staggering. Medical applications alone could revolutionize treatments for everything from dementia to trauma-induced brain injuries. Educational systems could be transformed to work with rather than against natural learning processes. The boundaries between human and machine intelligence, which had been gradually blurring for decades, suddenly seemed arbitrary and outdated. But there were concerns as well. The 17 enhanced individuals, while still recognizably themselves, had developed perspectives and priorities that sometimes seemed alien to their unchanged colleagues. They described experiences and concepts that defied translation into ordinary language. Some spoke of perceiving multiple potential futures simultaneously or understanding complex systems through direct intuition rather than analytical reasoning. Earth authorities, divided between excitement and apprehension, established a special commission to determine how to proceed. Some advocated for immediate wider application of the focused training, arguing that humanity couldn't afford to delay such a transformative advancement. Others counseled caution, warning that rushing into brain-altering alien technology could have civilization-ending consequences. Amid the growing debate, Min maintained a position of measured optimism. In a global broadcast that reached billions, he spoke not as a revolutionary or prophet, but as a scientist aware of both the promise and peril of their discovery. "What we've experienced is not an endpoint, but a beginning," he explained, his calm voice belying the extraordinary awareness behind his eyes. "The signal from Zeta 9 has given us a glimpse of cognitive possibilities beyond our evolutionary path. But this gift, if we choose to see it as such, comes with profound responsibility. We are standing at a threshold, and what matters now is not how quickly we cross it, but how wisely we integrate what lies beyond with what makes us human." 3 months after the initial signal detection, Earth dispatched a specialized ship to bring the Orion team home. The signal, which had continued without interruption, was now being received by a fully automated station, its patterns recorded and analyzed, but not directly applied until broader consensus could be reached. As the transport ship made its final approach to Earth, Min stood in the observation deck, watching the blue planet grow larger in the viewport. Beside him, Anne and the other 16 enhanced individuals shared a moment of contemplative silence. "Do you ever regret it?" Anne asked finally, "taking that risk?" Min considered the question carefully. The enhanced cognition had not eliminated emotion or human connection. If anything, it had deepened his appreciation for the complex beauty of consciousness in all its forms. "No," he said eventually. "But I understand now that what we've gained isn't just for us. It's a potential path for humanity, but not the only one. And it may not be the right path for everyone." Anne nodded, her enhanced perception allowing her to grasp the multiple layers of meaning in his simple statement. "They're afraid of us, aren't they? Not just the authorities, but ordinary people." "They're afraid of change," Min corrected gently. "As they should be. Radical transformation should never be approached casually. Our responsibility now is to show that enhanced cognition doesn't mean leaving humanity behind. It means gaining a deeper understanding of what being human truly encompasses." As the ship began its docking sequence, Min reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. What had begun as a mysterious signal had become a key to unlocking human potential. But the greatest challenges still lay ahead. Integrating this new cognitive frontier with human values, ensuring that enhanced intelligence served compassion and wisdom rather than merely accelerating humanity's capacity for creation and destruction. The true test would not be in the laboratory or research station, but in the complex social fabric of human civilization. Could enhanced cognition help solve the persistent problems that had plagued humanity for centuries? Inequality, environmental degradation, conflict? Or would it create new divisions, new hierarchies of capability and access? These questions had no simple answers, but Min found himself optimistic. The same enhanced perspective that allowed him to perceive complex systems also revealed the resilience and adaptability at the core of human nature. Throughout history, humanity had faced and integrated transformative technologies, from fire to digital networks. This new cognitive frontier, while perhaps the most profound yet, was part of that continuing journey. As Earth filled the viewport, its swirling clouds and blue expanses a testament to the complex systems that sustained life, Min made a silent promise. The gift from the stars, whether intentional offering or fortunate accident, would not be squandered or misused. It would become part of humanity's ongoing evolution, not as a replacement for human consciousness, but as an expansion of what consciousness could encompass. The journey that had begun with a mysterious signal breaking minds had led to a breakthrough in understanding what minds could become. And that, Min reflected as the ship completed its docking sequence, was just the beginning. 1 year later, Min stood before the World Science Congress in New Singapore, the largest gathering of scientific minds in human history. Representatives from every nation and orbital colony had assembled to hear the comprehensive presentation of what had come to be known as the Orion Protocols, the carefully developed methods for safely implementing aspects of the focus training for specific applications. The vast auditorium hummed with anticipation. On stage with Min were An, Dr. Rui, and 3 other key members of the original Orion team. Behind them, a holographic display showed the now famous first recording of the alien signal, its complex patterns shifting in mesmerizing rhythms. "Distinguished colleagues," Min began, his voice carrying effortlessly through the space. 1 year ago, humanity received an unexpected message from the stars. Not words or mathematics as we had long anticipated, but something more fundamental, a key to unlocking new cognitive architectures within our own minds. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some eager, some skeptical, all attentive. Today, we present not just our findings, but a path forward. The Orion Protocols represent a consensus approach, developed by enhanced and non-enhanced researchers working together, to safely harness aspects of what we have learned. The presentation that followed was comprehensive. Dr. Rui detailed the neurological mechanisms involved and explained the sophisticated filters and safeguards now built into the training systems. Other team members outlined specific applications already being implemented. Treatments for previously intractable neurological conditions, educational protocols that dramatically accelerated learning in specific domains, interfaces that allowed enhanced and non-enhanced individuals to collaborate more effectively. What they did not propose was universal enhancement. The risks and profound nature of the change meant that focused training would be implemented gradually, beginning with specific applications where the benefits clearly outweighed potential risks. "We stand at the beginning of a new chapter in human development," Min concluded. "Not the end of our story, but an expansion of what that story might encompass." The signal from Zeta 9 continues, and our understanding of it grows daily. Whether it was sent as deliberate instruction, as an invitation to join a wider community of intelligences, or simply as a beacon that we happen to intercept, its impact on our civilization will be profound and lasting. As the applause washed over the stage, Min felt a deep sense of completion. The journey that had begun in crisis aboard a distant research station had transformed into something hopeful, a new frontier not in space, but in the landscape of human potential. That evening, at a small gathering of the original Orion team, they shared memories and speculations away from the formal proceedings and media attention. "Do you think we'll ever know who sent it?" Kowalski asked, voicing the question that had lingered in all their minds. "Or why?" Min smiled. His enhanced perception had continued to evolve over the past year, revealing layers of pattern and meaning in the signal that suggested answers, but not certainties. "I believe we'll understand more as we continue to develop. The signal isn't static. It evolves as we engage with it. That suggests not just communication, but conversation. A conversation spanning light years, and mused, and potentially centuries, or longer," Dr. Rui added. "The senders are as advanced as their technology suggests. They may operate on timescales we can barely comprehend." They fell silent, contemplating the implications. The universe had always been vast beyond human comprehension, but now it seemed not just physically immense, but cognitively diverse in ways they were only beginning to appreciate. "Whatever their intentions," Min said finally, "they've given us a gift, not answers, but questions worth pursuing, and tools to help us develop our own answers." As the evening progressed, their conversation turned to the future. The focused training was just the beginning. Already, enhanced researchers were developing new technologies, new theoretical frameworks, new ways of understanding consciousness itself. Humanity was taking its first steps into a cognitive landscape as vast and uncharted as the physical universe had once seemed. There would be challenges ahead, ethical dilemmas, unexpected consequences, resistance to change, but there would also be discoveries beyond anything they could currently imagine, connections formed across boundaries of understanding that had once seemed impermeable. As Min looked around at his colleagues, the people who had taken that first risky journey with him, he felt profound gratitude. Together, they had transformed what could have been catastrophe into catalyst, threat into opportunity. They had faced the unknown not with fear but with curiosity, and in doing so, had opened a door that would never fully close again. The signal from Zeta 9 continued its broadcast, a steady pulse of alien cognition reaching across the void. And humanity, with cautious optimism, had begun to respond, not just receiving, but engaging with a universe suddenly rich with new possibility. In his enhanced perception, Min could almost see the ripples of change spreading outward from their discovery, through human society, through Earth's biosphere, potentially someday reaching back to the distant source of the signal itself. A conversation not just between species or civilizations, but between fundamentally different ways of experiencing reality. The mind-breaking signals had indeed been broken through, transformed from disruptive intrusion to developmental opportunity, and the breakthrough they had catalyzed was just beginning to unfold.